Captain Lee Hyun stared at the coffee stain on his desk and wondered if today would be as boring as yesterday. The Deep Space Monitoring Station New Seoul floated quietly in the darkness between stars. For 3 years, nothing interesting had happened. Ships came and went. Miners complained about their work. Traders argued about prices. Same old routine. The alarm changed everything. Red lights flashed across the control room. The sound was loud and sharp, cutting through the normal hum of machines. Lee Hyun jumped up from his chair, spilling more coffee on his already messy uniform. "What's happening?" he shouted over the noise. Ensign Park Minji turned from her screen, her face white with shock. "Captain, we have massive contacts coming out of hyperspace, above Earth. Dozens of them, sir." Lee Hyun felt his stomach drop. "Show me." The main screen flickered to life. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. Huge ships appeared in space around Earth like dark mountains floating in the void. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built. The largest one looked like it could swallow entire cities. "How big are they?" Lee Hyun asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. "The biggest one is over 20 kilometers long, sir," Park Minji said, her voice shaking. "The smaller ones are still twice the size of our best battleships." Lee Hyun grabbed the communication device. "Get me Admiral Park Gina on Aegis Prime. Emergency channel, now." While they waited for the connection, more alarms started going off. Other monitoring stations across human space were reporting the same thing. The alien fleet had appeared suddenly without warning, like ghosts becoming real. Admiral Park Gina's face appeared on the screen. She was a tough woman who had fought in the Mars Rebellion 20 years ago. Lee Hyun had never seen her look worried before. Today was different. "Hyun, are you seeing this?" she asked. "Yes, Admiral. What are your orders?" "I'm moving all defense fleets to Earth immediately. These ships, they're not like anything we've ever seen. I'm going to try talking to them first." Lee Hyun watched as Admiral Park Gina's image disappeared. On his screen, he could see the human defense fleet moving toward the alien ships. Earth's best warships looked like tiny fish swimming toward whales. The alien response came faster than anyone expected. A signal burst across all communication channels. The voice that spoke was deep and cold, with strange sounds that hurt to hear. When the translation came through, every human in space felt fear crawl down their spine. "Primitive species of the third planet. Your existence offends the natural order." The voice belonged to something that called itself War Prime Corvex. Even through the translation, the hatred in those words was clear. Lee Hyun had heard angry people before, but this was different. This was the voice of something that saw humans as insects to be stepped on. "You have 72 standard hours to evacuate your warriors and surrender your worlds. Compliance will result in servitude. Resistance will result in extinction." The communication ended with a sound like breaking glass. For a moment, nobody spoke. The control room was silent, except for the hum of machines and the quiet breathing of scared people. Then the aliens showed what their words meant. One of the huge ships turned toward Earth's moon. A beam of pure energy, brighter than the sun, reached out and touched Armstrong Base. The mining colony where 3,000 people lived and worked simply vanished. Not destroyed, vanished. Where the base had been, there was now empty space and floating metal. "Dear God," whispered Park Minji. Lee Hyun felt sick. Those people had families, children, dreams. Now they were gone, turned to atoms in a single second. His communication device buzzed. Dr. Kim Minho's face appeared, calling from his laboratory on Mars. The scientist looked terrified, but determined. Captain Lee, I've been studying their energy readings. These aliens, they're thousands of years ahead of us. Maybe tens of thousands. Our best weapons would barely scratch their smallest ship. How is that possible? Lee Hyun asked. I don't know, but I'm running every scan I can. Maybe we can find a weakness. Another face appeared on screen. President Yu Sora was broadcasting from Earth to all human colonies and ships. She stood straight and tall, even though Lee Hyun could see the fear in her eyes. Citizens of Earth and all human worlds, she began. We face a threat unlike any in our history. These aliens have given us 3 days to surrender. They expect us to bow down and accept slavery or death. She paused, looking directly into the camera. I have one answer for them. We survived the Ice Age when our ancestors lived in caves. We survived wars that killed millions. We survived plagues that nearly ended our species. We crawled out of those caves in Africa, built cities, reached for the stars, and made homes on distant worlds. President Yu Sora's voice grew stronger. We did not come this far to bow to tyrants from space. We are human. We endure. We fight. We protect our own. The broadcast ended, but her words echoed in Lee Hyun's mind. Around him, his crew sat up straighter. The fear was still there, but now it mixed with something else. Determination. Over the next few hours, reports came in from across human space. Every ship, every colony, every outpost was preparing for war. Nobody talked about surrender. Even the miners and traders were grabbing weapons and asking how they could help. Admiral Park Gina tried to contact the aliens again, hoping to buy time or find some way to avoid the coming battle. The response was always the same cold voice. Surrender or die. As the first day ended, Lee Hyun stood on the observation deck of New Seoul, looking toward Earth. He could see the alien ships hanging in space like dark clouds over his home world. Somewhere down there were his parents, his sister, his friends from school. Captain, Park Min-ji said behind him, we're getting reports of human fleets moving from every system. They're all heading for Earth. Lee Hyun nodded. It would not be enough. Everyone knew it would not be enough. The aliens had ships that could destroy planets. Humans had courage and determination, but those might not be enough either. But they would try. That was what humans did. When faced with impossible odds, they tried anyway. Set course for Earth, Lee Hyun ordered. Maximum speed. Sir, our orders are to maintain the monitoring station. Lee Hyun turned to look at his young ensign. Min-ji, in 3 days, there might not be a monitoring station to maintain. There might not be a human space fleet to serve. But right now, there's a fight coming, and our people need every ship they can get. He looked back toward Earth, where the alien ships waited like hungry wolves. We're going home. The crew of New Seoul began preparing their small station for war. They had mining lasers that could be turned into weapons, communication equipment that could jam enemy signals, and most importantly, they had the stubborn, human refusal to give up. War Prime Corvex had given humanity 3 days to surrender. He was about to learn that humans had spent their entire history proving that some things were worth fighting for, even when victory seemed impossible. The human fleet gathered around Earth like a swarm of angry bees defending their hive. Ships came from every corner of human space: warships, cargo haulers, mining vessels, even luxury yachts. If it could fly and carry weapons, it joined the fleet. Fleet Commander Choi Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the battleship Incheon, watching the alien ships through the main screen. 3 days had passed since the ultimatum. The aliens had not moved, just waited like patient hunters. Now the time for talking was over. All ships, this is Fleet Command, Choi Dae-ho spoke into his communicator. The enemy has shown us what they think of human life. Today we show them what we think of theirs. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for the right to exist as free people. The first alien ship moved forward, slow and confident. It was one of the smaller ones, only twice the size of Earth's biggest battleship. The message was clear. They thought one ship could handle the entire human fleet. All weapons, fire at will, Choi Dae-ho ordered. Space lit up with weapons fire. Hundreds of human ships unleashed everything they had at the alien vessel. Lasers, missiles, particle beams, the concentrated firepower of humanity's entire military, fell on the enemy ship like a hammer blow. The alien shields flared bright blue, absorbing the attack. When the light faded, the ship was still there, completely undamaged. "Sir, our weapons had no effect," reported Lieutenant Commander Nam Yoo-jin from her position at the weapons console. Before Choi Dae-ho could respond, the alien ship fired back. A single beam of red energy lanced out and touched the destroyer Soul. The ship simply vanished, taking its crew of 300 with it. "Scatter formation!" Choi Dae-ho shouted. "Use hit-and-run tactics! Don't give them easy targets!" The human fleet broke apart like a flock of birds, ships diving and weaving through space. They were smaller and faster than the alien vessels. If they could not win through firepower, maybe they could win through speed and cunning. Lieutenant. Commander Nam Yoo-jin pushed her experimental fighter Phoenix to its limits. The small ship was built for testing new engines, but today it would test something else. Human determination. "This is Phoenix. I'm going to try something crazy," she said over the radio. "Nam, whatever you're thinking, don't do it," Choi Dae-ho warned. "Sorry, sir. Some things are worth the risk." Nam Yoo-jin dove her fighter straight at the alien ship. Enemy weapons tried to track her small craft, but she was too fast and too small. At the last second, she fired all her missiles at the same spot. On the enemy shield, then crashed through the weakened barrier. Her ship scraped along the alien hull, its engines overloading and exploding. The blast tore a hole in the enemy ship's armor. For the first time, human weapons found their mark. Nam Yoo-jin's escape pod tumbled through space as the alien ship began leaking atmosphere and energy. She had proven something important. The aliens could be hurt. "All fighters, follow Phoenix's example," Choi Dae-ho ordered. "Target their shield generators." The battle became a deadly dance. Human ships darted in close, striking at weak points, then racing away before the aliens could respond. It was dangerous work. For every alien ship damaged, humanity lost 10 vessels. But they kept fighting. On Earth's surface, General Kang Woo-jin watched the space battle from his command bunker deep underground. The planet's defense systems were charging up, preparing for the enemy landing that everyone knew was coming. "Sir, alien dropships are breaking away from the main fleet," his aide reported. "Here we go," General Kang muttered. "All units, prepare for ground assault." The alien landing craft looked like falling meteors as they entered Earth's atmosphere. Human fighters tried to stop them, but there were too many. Within minutes, alien soldiers were on the ground in dozens of cities. The aliens were tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. They wore armor that seemed to absorb bullets and carried weapons that could melt through tank armor. But they had made one mistake. They expected humans to run. Instead, they found themselves fighting in every street, every building, every room. Human soldiers, police officers, and ordinary citizens fought with everything they had. When their guns ran out of bullets, they used knives. When their knives broke, they used rocks. In New York, a group of school children helped soldiers by spotting alien positions from building rooftops. In London, elderly people made bombs from household chemicals. In Tokyo, office workers used their knowledge of the city's tunnels to launch surprise attacks. The aliens were stronger and better equipped, but they had never faced an enemy that simply refused to give up. Dr. Shin Yunji worked frantically in her laboratory beneath the ruins of New Geneva. Around her, the sounds of battle echoed through the tunnels. Explosions shook dust from the ceiling, but she did not stop working. "How much more time do you need?" asked her assistant, Dr. Ryu Dongmin. 6 hours, maybe 7, she replied. Not looking up from her calculations. The city won't last that long. Then we'd better work faster. Project Lazarus was humanity's last hope. A quantum communication system that could send messages across the galaxy instantly. If Earth fell, the human colonies needed to know what they were facing. Above them, the battle for Earth continued. The human space fleet was losing badly. Half their ships were gone and the aliens had barely taken damage, but they kept fighting, buying time for the evacuation ships and the mysterious project in the underground labs. Commander Yang Taemin volunteered to stay behind with a skeleton crew to operate Earth's final defense grid. His wife and children were already on an evacuation ship heading for Alpha Centauri. "You don't have to do this," Admiral Park Gina told him over the radio. "Yes, I do," Yang Taemin replied. "Someone has to make sure the evacuation ships get away, safely. Besides, someone needs to send that final message." The alien flagship finally moved. The massive vessel, larger than most cities, approached Earth with terrible purpose. Its main weapon began charging, a planet killer that could crack worlds like eggs. "All remaining ships, this is Admiral Park Gina," came the broadcast. "We've done our duty. The evacuation ships are away. All personnel are ordered to abandon Earth immediately." But Commander Yang Taemin did not leave. Neither did the crews of 40 other ships. They formed a final line between the alien flagship and their dying world. "This is Earth Control," Yang Taemin broadcast to the fleeing evacuation ships. "We are going dark. Remember us. Avenge us. Humanity endures." The alien weapon fired. Earth's moon, already cracked from the earlier attack, split completely in half. Massive chunks of rock and metal rained down on the planet's surface. Cities burned, oceans boiled. But in those final moments, Dr. Shin Yunji's project came online. The quantum transmitter sent out a single message to every human colony in space. It contained everything: battle recordings, alien weapon analysis, tactical data, and most importantly, proof that the aliens could be hurt. The message also carried something else: the location of a secret research facility on Pluto where human scientists had been working on advanced weapons. If humanity was going to survive, they would need every advantage they could get. As Earth died, the last human defenders fought until the end. Yang Taemin's ship was the final one to fall, taking an alien destroyer with it in a brilliant explosion that lit up the dying world. The evacuation fleets jumped to hyperspace, carrying 50 million refugees to safety. Behind them, Earth burned. The blue marble that had been humanity's home for millions of years was now a broken, lifeless rock. But the aliens had learned something important in their victory. These humans did not break easily. Even when facing certain death, they fought with a fury that surprised their conquerors. War Prime Corvex studied the battle reports from his flagship. His species had conquered 47 others across the galaxy. Most surrendered after seeing a demonstration of Valthek power. Others fought briefly before accepting defeat. The humans had fought until every ship was destroyed and every city was burning. Even then, small groups continued to resist from caves and ruins. It had taken 3 full days to silence the last pockets of human resistance. "These creatures are unusual," Korvex noted to his second-in-command. "Their technology is primitive, but their determination is remarkable." "Should we be concerned, War Prime?" Korvex looked at the tactical display showing human ships scattered across dozens of star systems. "No, they are few in number now, and we have broken their spirit by destroying their home world. The remaining survivors will hide in the darkness, like frightened animals." He was wrong. In the fleeing ships and hidden colonies, humanity was not broken. They were angry, and they were already planning their revenge. The war for humanity's survival had only just begun. 6 months after Earth died, humanity lived in the shadows. Admiral Baek Jisoo floated in the zero gravity of the converted cargo hauler New Dawn, staring at reports that made her stomach hurt. 50 million humans scattered across space in refugee ships and hidden bases. The alien Valthek Empire controlled most of known space, hunting human survivors like wolves tracking wounded deer. "Admiral, we're getting another distress signal," reported Communications Officer Lee Jinwoo. 3 refugee ships under attack near the Kepler system. Baek Jisoo closed her eyes. They could not save everyone. The human fleet was too small, spread too thin. Every day, more ships went silent. "Send Ghost Squadron if they're in range," she ordered. "Tell them to be careful. We can't afford to lose more fighters." The Ghost Squadron was one of humanity's few advantages. Fast, stealthy ships that could strike quickly and disappear before the aliens could respond. It was not much, but it was something. Dr. Lim Jae-woo worked in his mobile laboratory aboard the stealth ship Ghost of Earth. The small vessel drifted through an asteroid field, hiding from alien patrol ships. Around him, salvaged alien technology covered every surface. "I've got something," he called to Captain Seo Mina, who was checking their hiding spot through the ship's sensors. "Good news or bad news?" she asked. "Weird news. These Valthek aren't what they seem." Captain Seo Mina drifted over to look at his findings. Dr. Lim Jae-woo pointed at a strange device they had pulled from a destroyed alien ship. "This technology doesn't match their other equipment. It's older, much older. And look at these readings. This thing is designed to change brain chemistry." "What do you mean?" "I think the Valthek are using some kind of mind control technology. Not on us. On themselves." Before Captain Seo Mina could ask more questions, her sensors detected movement. A Valthek patrol ship was heading toward their asteroid field. "We need to move," she whispered. "Now." The Ghost of Earth slipped quietly through the asteroids, using their bulk to hide from the alien sensors. It was dangerous work. One mistake, and they would either crash into a rock or be detected by the enemy. They made it to clear space just as the patrol ship reached their hiding spot. Captain Seo Mina waited until they were far away before speaking. Again, "Keep working on that technology. If you're right, it could change everything." Meanwhile, on the dead world of Kepler 442b, another discovery was being made. Dr. Park Sun-ho knelt in the ruins of an alien city, brushing dust away from strange symbols carved into black stone. The Zilani had lived here once, a peaceful species of blue-skinned artists and philosophers. The Valthek had conquered them 60 years ago. "Captain, you need to see this," he called to Captain Seo Mina, who had arrived with a scouting team. Tetu. Message was carved into the wall of what had once been a temple. Dr. Park Sun-ho had spent weeks learning to read Zalani writing. What he found made his blood run cold. "What does it say?" Captain Seo Mina asked. Dr. Park Sun-ho read slowly. "Beware, the void seed. It comes from the dark between galaxies. It changes those it touches, makes them hungry for more minds to consume. The Valtech were once like us, peaceful, curious, kind. Now they are slaves to the ancient hunger. Soon, we will be the same. If you find this message, know that the enemy you face is not truly the Valtech. It is something much older and much worse." The scouting team stood in silence, processing what they had learned. If this was true, then the war was bigger than anyone had imagined. "There's more," Dr. Park Sun-ho continued. "The Zalani scientists believed the void seed could be destroyed, but it would require a coordinated effort across multiple star systems. They were working on a solution when the Valtech arrived." Captain Seo Mina activated her communicator. "This is Seo Mina to all human command vessels. Priority Alpha message. We've found something important." The news spread through the human fleet like wildfire. The enemy was not just an aggressive alien empire, it was a cosmic infection that turned peaceful species into mindless conquerors. Colonel Oh Soo-jin trained the first Ghost battalions on a hidden asteroid base called Haven Station. The volunteers came from every part of human space: soldiers who had lost their families, civilians who wanted revenge, scientists who understood what they were really fighting. "Listen up," she told the new recruits. "We're not just fighting aliens anymore. We're fighting for the freedom of every thinking being in the galaxy. The Valtech were victims too, once upon a time. But that doesn't mean we go easy on them. They chose to spread the infection instead of fighting it. The training was brutal. The recruits learned to use captured Valtech weapons to move silently through alien ships, to think like their enemies. Most importantly, they learned to work with other species. The first aliens to join the resistance were the Corvani, reptilian creatures who had escaped from a Valtech prison world. Major Hwang Ji-hoon led the rescue mission that freed them. "These Corvani are tough," he reported to Colonel Oh Soo-jin. "Their scales can stop bullets, and they can see in the dark. But the best part is they hate the Valtech as much as we do." The Corvani leader, a scarred warrior named Therex, spoke through a translation device. "Your species fights with honor. Ours will fight beside you until the Star Killers are dead." More species joined the growing alliance. The crystalline Nexari could phase through solid matter, making them perfect for infiltration missions. The gas-dwelling Ethans could manipulate gravity fields with their thoughts. The machine hybrid Technaxi brought advanced computer skills and perfect coordination. Each new ally taught the humans something different about fighting the Valtech. More importantly, they proved that the alien empire was not invincible. Dr. Young. Heian worked with scientists from 6 different species in a hidden laboratory on the edge of the galaxy. Together, they studied captured void seed technology and looked for weaknesses. "The infection spreads through quantum entanglement," she explained to Admiral Baek Jisoo during a secure communication. "Every infected individual is connected to the original source. If we could find that source and destroy it, the entire network would collapse." "Where is this source?" "We think it's on the Valtech homeworld, Dominion Prime. But that planet is protected by orbital defense platforms and an entire fleet. It would take a massive coordinated attack to even reach it." Admiral Baek Jisoo nodded grimly. The human fleet was growing stronger every day, but they were still vastly outnumbered. An attack on the Valtech homeworld would be suicide, unless they could convince every enslaved species in the galaxy to rebel at the same time. Commander Moon Dong-yun led Wraith Squadron on increasingly bold raids against Valtech installations. The squadron flew modified alien fighters, painted black to blend with space. Their motto was simple: death from the darkness. Target the communication arrays first, he instructed his pilots as they approached a Valtech supply depot. If they can't call for help, they can't fight back effectively. The raid was perfect. 12 Wraith fighters destroyed the depot's defenses in minutes, then vanished back into space before reinforcements could arrive. They left behind a message broadcast on all frequencies. This is humanity. We have not forgotten. We have not forgiven. We are coming. These small victories added up. Supply lines were disrupted. Communication networks went dark. Patrol ships disappeared. The Valtech began to realize that their easy conquest of humanity had created a dangerous enemy. War Prime Corvex studied the reports from his fortress on Dominion Prime. The humans were becoming a serious problem. Worse, they were inspiring other enslaved species to rebel. "How many uprisings in the past month?" he asked his aide. 17, War Prime. The humans seem to be coordinating with local resistance movements. Corvex's forearms clenched into fists. The Void Seed whispered in his mind, demanding more conquest, more absorption of lesser species. But these humans were interfering with the Great Plan. Double the patrols, increase the punishment raids on human refugee camps, and find their hidden bases. All of them. But the humans had learned to hide well. They moved constantly, used dead. Space between stars disguised their ships as asteroids or space junk. They had become ghosts, haunting the edges of the Valtech Empire. Dr. Kim Youngji made the breakthrough that would change everything. "I've decoded their navigation systems," she announced to the assembled Alliance leaders. "I know where their home world is." The hidden meeting was taking place on a captured Valtech ship, deep in a nebula that blocked sensors. Representatives from 20 different species listened as she explained her discovery. "Dominion Prime is here," she said, pointing at a star map. "It's surrounded by defense platforms, but there are weak points in their coverage. If we could coordinate attacks across the entire galaxy, drawing their forces away, a strike team might be able to reach the planet." "How many ships would we need?" asked Admiral Bak Jisoo. "Everything we've got. Every human ship, every freed alien vessel, every resistance fighter in known space. This would be our one chance." The alien representatives spoke in their various languages, the translation devices creating a babble of voices. But the meaning was clear. They were all thinking the same thing. It was impossible. It was suicide. It was their only hope. "Do we begin planning?" asked Therex, the Corvani leader. Admiral Bak Jisoo looked around the room at beings from dozens of worlds, all united in their desire for freedom. "Right." 2 years after Earth became a grave, the galaxy burned with rebellion. General Song Mi-young stood in the command center of Haven Base, hidden deep in the Veil Nebula. The base had grown from a simple asteroid hideout into a massive military complex. Ships came and went like busy insects, carrying weapons, supplies, and most importantly, hope to resistance fighters across known space. "Status report," she called to her aide, Lieutenant Cho Jae-hyun. 17 simultaneous uprisings this week, General. The Corvani have taken back 3 star systems. The Nexari freed their crystal worlds. The Technaxi have shut down Valtech Computer. Networks in 12 sectors. Song Mi-young nodded, but her expression remained serious. Casualties? Heavy, as expected. But the aliens are taking losses, too. For every ship we lose, they lose too. It was progress, but at a terrible cost. Every day brought news of friends and allies who would never see freedom. Every victory was paid for with blood. Captain An Kyung-soo proved that sometimes the simplest ideas worked best. His cargo hauler Defiant looked like any other merchant ship, old, rusty, and harmless. The Valthek patrol ships ignored it completely, until it was too late. Ramming speed, An Kyung-soo ordered his small crew. The Defiant accelerated toward the massive Valthek supply depot, its engines pushed far beyond safe limits. At the last second, An Kyung-soo and his crew teleported to escape pods. Their ship, loaded with stolen alien explosives, crashed into the depot at nearly light speed. The explosion could be seen from 3-star systems away. The depot, which had supplied Valthek forces across an entire sector, simply ceased to exist. Another one down, An Kyung-soo reported as his rescue ship picked up the escape pods. How many more depots do they have? Too many, came the reply. But we're working on it. Dr. Jung Ha-yoon made discoveries that changed everything about how the Alliance fought the war. Working with alien scientists on the research station New Hope, she unlocked secrets about the Void Seed that even the Valthek did not know. The infection has a weakness, she explained to the Alliance Council. It needs a constant connection to the source to maintain control. If we can create quantum interference on a large enough scale, we can temporarily break that connection. What would that do? Asked Commander Moon Dong-yeon. For a short time, the infected Valthek would remember who they used to be. They might even help us. It was a dangerous plan. Creating quantum interference required enormous amounts of energy and left the generators vulnerable to attack. But it offered something the Alliance desperately needed, a way to turn the enemy's numbers against them. The first test came during the Battle of Zerion Prime. Commander Moon Dong-yoon led his Wraith Squadron against a heavily defended Valthek world. The planet held millions of enslaved aliens working in mining operations. It also contained one of the largest Valthek fleets in that sector. Beginning quantum interference, reported Dr. Jung Ha-yoon from the modified research ship Hidden. Truth. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Valthek ships suddenly stopped firing at the human fighters and began attacking each other. On the planet's surface, Valthek soldiers turned their weapons on their own commanders. "It's working!" Moon Dong-yeon shouted over the radio. "The Valthek are fighting themselves." But the effect only lasted 20 minutes. When the quantum interference faded, the surviving Valthek were more angry and desperate than before. "We saved about half the slaves," Moon Dong-yeon reported afterward. "But the cost was high. We lost 6 ships, and the Valthek will be ready for this trick next time." Still, word of the victory spread through the galaxy. Enslaved species learned that their oppressors could be confused and weakened. More importantly, they learned that the humans and their allies were winning. Captain Ryu Soman specialized in the impossible missions. Her stealth ship Whisper could slip through Valthek defenses like a ghost through walls. She led teams of specialists who could steal intelligence, rescue prisoners, and sabotage critical installations. "This one's going to be different," she told her team as they studied plans for their next mission. "We're not just stealing information, we're stealing a person." The target was Dr. Vorthak, a Valthek scientist who had been working on improvements to the Void Seed infection. According to intelligence reports, he had been asking questions that made his superiors nervous. Questions about whether the infection could be reversed. If we can get him away from the source long enough, maybe the quantum interference will help him remember who he used to be, Captain Ryu Soman explained. The mission took place on Nexus Station, a massive research facility in the heart of Valthek space. Captain Ryu Soman's team used a combination of alien technologies to sneak aboard. Nexari phase shifting to pass through walls, Ethan gravity manipulation to avoid sensors, and good old-fashioned human sneaking skills. They found Dr. Vorthak in a laboratory surrounded by horrifying experiments. The Valthek scientist was tall and thin like all his species, but something in his large eyes seemed different from other infected aliens. "Who are you?" he asked in perfect human language. "Friends," Captain Ryu Somin replied. "We're here to take you somewhere safe." "Safe?" Dr. Vorthak laughed bitterly. "There is no safe place in the galaxy. The Void Seed sees all, controls all. Not anymore. We've learned to block its signal." For the first time in decades, hope flickered in the alien scientist's eyes. The escape was harrowing. Valthek security forces surrounded the station as soon as they detected the intrusion. Captain Ryu Somin's team fought their way to their hidden ship, carrying the confused scientist with them. Once they were far enough from Valthek space, Dr. Jung Heon activated a portable quantum interference generator. The effect on Dr. Vorthak was dramatic. He collapsed to his knees, screaming in what sounded like both agony and relief. When he finally looked up, his eyes were clear for the first time in 60 years. "My name is Vorthak of the Third Spiral," he said in his original language. "I was a healer before the darkness came. What have I become?" The Alliance had gained their first willing Valthek ally. Dr. Vorthak's knowledge proved invaluable. He confirmed what the Alliance had suspected. The original Void Seed was located on Dominion Prime, in a temple complex at the planet's North Pole. More importantly, he knew its weaknesses. The seed requires quantum resonance across multiple dimensions to maintain the infection, he explained. If you could create a counter-resonance at exactly the right frequency, it would destroy the connection permanently. "What would we need?" asked General Song Myung. "Thousands of quantum generators, all synchronized perfectly. You would need to place them throughout the galaxy and activate them simultaneously. And you would need someone to get close enough to the seed to plant the primary resonance device." It sounded impossible, but the Alliance had been doing impossible things for 2 years. Fleet Admiral John Seung-ho began assembling the largest fleet in galactic history. Ships came from every corner of known space, human vessels built from salvaged parts, alien warships reclaimed from their oppressors, converted merchant vessels loaded with weapons. The dreadnought Earth's Vengeance served as the flagship. Built from the remains of destroyed Valthek ships, it represented humanity's refusal to surrender. Every piece of metal had been taken from the enemy and turned against them. "How many ships do we have?" Jeon Sung-ho asked his fleet coordinator, Captain Kim Tae-hun. 3,417 combat vessels, another 2,000. Support ships, representatives from 47 liberated species. And the enemy? Estimates suggest they have over 10,000 ships defending Dominion Prime alone. John Sung-ho looked out at his assembled fleet. They were outnumbered 3-1, facing an enemy with superior technology and home field advantage. By any reasonable calculation, they were about to commit suicide. "Send the message to all fleet commanders," he ordered. "Operation Prometheus begins in 72 hours. Wing Commander Yoon Tae-hyung prepared his fighter squadrons for the battle of their lives. The mixed squadrons included human pilots flying captured alien fighters, Corvani warriors in their organic ships, and Nexari scouts who could phase through enemy shields. "Remember," he told his pilots, "we're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. Every enslaved species in the galaxy is watching. Every child who dreams of freedom is counting on us. We don't have to win. We just have to make sure the mission succeeds." The mission was simple in theory, impossible in practice. The fleet would attack Dominion Prime from multiple directions, drawing the defending forces away from the planet. Meanwhile, a small strike team would land on the surface and plant the primary resonance device in the Void Seed Temple. If everything went perfectly, if they got incredibly lucky, if they were willing to sacrifice everything, they might succeed. Colonel No Jin-hwan volunteered to lead the ground assault team. His volunteers included the best fighters from every species in the Alliance, humans who had lost their families, Corvani seeking revenge, Nexari who could walk through walls, and dozens of others. "This is a one-way mission," he told them honestly. "Even if we succeed, we probably won't make it off the planet." Not one volunteer backed down. As the Allied fleet prepared for the final battle, messages poured in from across the galaxy. Resistance fighters on thousands of worlds sent their support. Enslaved populations prepared for their own uprisings. The Battle of Dominion Prime began with 5,000 ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the Valtech home system. Fleet Admiral John Sung-ho watched from the Bridge of Earth's Vengeance as the massive alien defense fleet moved to intercept them. The Valtech had twice as many ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything in the Allied fleet. "All ships, this is Fleet Command," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Today we end this war. Today we free the galaxy. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every species that dreams of freedom." The first exchange of fire lit up space like a new star. Thousands of weapons unleashed their fury as the two fleets collided. The Allied ships used every advantage they had: speed, cunning, and the desperate courage of beings with nothing left to lose. Wing Commander Yoon Tae-hyung led the fighter screen in a modified Valtech fighter he had nicknamed Freedom's Edge. Around him, pilots from dozens of species flew in perfect formation, despite speaking different languages and coming from worlds millions of light years apart. "Nexari Wing, phase through their shields and hit the weapon systems," he ordered. "Corvani Squadron, use your ramming attacks on the big ships. Human fighters, stay mobile and keep them confused." The battle was chaos. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Debris tumbled through space, but for every Allied vessel destroyed, the Valtech paid a heavy price. Captain Siomina guided her stealth ship, Phantom, through the orbital defense platforms surrounding Dominion Prime. Her job was to clear a path for the ground assault team while the main battle raged above. "Sensors show weak points in platforms 7 and 12, reported her navigator, Ensign Bae Soo-hyun. "If we can overload their power cores." "Do it," Captain Siomina ordered. The Phantom slipped between the massive defense platforms like a minnow swimming between whales. Each platform was the size of a small city, bristling with enough weapons to destroy entire fleets. But they were designed to fight large ships, not tiny stealth vessels. Captain Siomina's team planted explosive charges on critical systems, then vanished before the aliens knew what had happened. When the charges detonated, 2 defense platforms went dark, creating a gap in Dominion Prime's protective shield. "Path is clear," she reported. "Ground team, you're good to go." Colonel No Jinwan led the assault team in a captured Valthek transport ship. His volunteers came from every species in the Alliance. Humans seeking revenge for Earth, Corvani warriors hungry for battle, Nexari who could walk through walls, Ethans who could manipulate gravity, and Technaxi whose computer skills could overcome alien security systems. "Remember the plan," he told them as their ship entered Dominion Prime's atmosphere. "We get to the temple, plant the resonance device, and hold our position until the fleet is ready. Simple." Nothing about this mission was simple, and everyone knew it. The planet below was a fortress world. Every surface was covered with military installations, weapon emplacements, and the dark spires of void seed temples. The sky was full of patrol, ships, and defense drones. Their transport crashed in the mountains near the North Pole, where the original void seed waited in its ancient temple. The team had to fight through 20 kilometers of hostile terrain, while every enemy on the planet converged on their position. Dr. Lee Soo-young carried the resonance device in a specially shielded container. The device was humanity's greatest scientific achievement, a quantum resonator that could destroy the void seed's influence across the galaxy. But it was also incredibly fragile. "How much further?" she asked Colonel No Jinwan as they fought through a squad of Valtech soldiers. 5 kilometers, he replied, firing his captured alien weapon at enemy positions. "Can you keep it safe that long?" "I'll have to." The temple complex was a nightmare of twisted architecture that seemed to bend space around itself. The buildings were black as space, covered with symbols that hurt to look at directly. At the center stood the main temple, where the void seed had been growing for millions of years. War Prime Corvex met them at the temple entrance. The Valthek leader had changed since the infection took hold decades ago. He was no longer entirely organic. Parts of his body had been replaced with void seed technology. His forearms ended in claws that could cut through metal. His eyes glowed with alien intelligence. "So the primitives have come to die in our most sacred place," he said, his voice echoing with harmonics that no natural throat could produce. "We've come to free the galaxy," Colonel No Jinwan replied, raising his weapon. The battle that followed shook the temple to its foundations. Corvex moved with inhuman speed, his claws and built-in weapons making him a one-being army. But the assault team fought with the desperate courage of beings who knew the fate of every free mind in the galaxy depended on their success. Corvani warriors used their natural armor to absorb Corvex's attacks, while human soldiers flanked him. Nexari fighters phased through his defenses to strike at weak points. Ethans manipulated gravity to throw him off balance. "The device!" Colonel No Jinwan shouted to Dr. Lee Soo-young. "Get it to the chamber!" Dr. Lee Soo-young ran deeper into the temple while the others kept Corvex busy. The corridors twisted and turned in ways that defied physics. The walls seemed to pulse with alien life, and whispers in unknown languages echoed from everywhere and nowhere. At the temple's heart, she found it. The original void seed was beautiful and terrible. It hung in the center of a vast chamber, looking like a dark crystal the size of a building. Energy flowed through it in patterns that hurt to watch. This was the source of the infection that had enslaved entire star systems. Setting up the resonance. "Device!" she reported through her communicator. "Hurry!" came Colonel No Jinwan's voice, strained with effort. "We can't hold Corvex much longer." The quantum resonator had to be calibrated perfectly. Too weak. And it would only anger the void seed. Too strong, and it might tear a hole in space-time itself. Dr. Lee Soo-young worked with shaking hands as the sounds of battle echoed through the temple. Above the planet, the space battle reached its climax. The Allied fleet was losing badly. Half their ships were destroyed, and the survivors were running low on ammunition and power. "Sir, we're getting reports of massive casualties across all squadrons," reported Fleet Admiral John Sung-ho's aide, Captain Kim Tae-hun. "The Wraith Squadron is down to 3 ships. The Corvani Heavy Division has lost 60% of their vessels." John Sung-ho watched another Allied cruiser explode on his main screen. They were brave, all of them, but bravery alone was not enough against the Valthek's superior numbers and technology. "How long until the resonance device is ready?" he asked. Dr. Lee Soo-young estimates 15 more minutes for calibration. 15 minutes. The fleet had to hold for 15 more minutes while being systematically destroyed by an enemy that outnumbered them 2-1. "All ships, this is Fleet Command," John Seung-ho broadcast. "Form defensive formations around the planet. No one gets through to the surface, whatever the cost." Wing Commander Yoon Tae-hyung's fighter was barely holding together. His shields were gone, his weapons were overheating, and enemy ships surrounded him on all sides. But he kept fighting, using every trick he had learned in 2 years of guerrilla warfare. "This is Yoon Tae-hyung to all fighters," he called over the radio. "Remember what we're fighting for. Remember Earth. Remember everyone we've lost. Make them count." His fighter exploded a few seconds later, but not before he rammed it into a Valthek destroyer's bridge. In the temple chamber, Dr. Lee Soo-young finished her calibrations just as Corvex broke through the defensive line. The enhanced Valthek leader burst into the chamber, his claws extended and his eyes blazing with alien fury. "You cannot destroy what you do not understand, primitive," he roared. "The seed is eternal. The void is patient. We are inevitable." Behind him came Colonel No Jin-hwan, bleeding from dozens of wounds, but still fighting. "Lee, activate it now!" "The synchronization isn't complete," she protested. "If I activate it now, the resonance might not reach all the way to the edge of the galaxy." "Then we make it reach," said General Park Jae-ho's voice over the communicator. High above the planet, General Park Jae-ho stood in the engine room of his command ship, Humanity's Hope. The ship was dying around him, its hull breached. In a dozen places, its crew evacuated to other vessels, but the ship still had one thing left to give. "I'm overloading our quantum core," he reported to the fleet. "The explosion will amplify the resonance signal across the entire galaxy." "Sir, that will destroy your ship," his aide protested. "You need to evacuate." "Someone has to stay and make sure the overload happens at exactly the right moment. Besides," General Park Jae-ho smiled as he worked at the engine controls, "someone needs to send that final message." He opened a channel to every human ship in space, every refugee camp, every hidden base where humans waited for news of the battle. "This is General Park Jae-ho of the Human Defense Fleet. We came to this place to free the galaxy from an ancient evil. We came to prove that no tyrant, no matter how powerful, can break the spirit of free beings. Today, we succeed. The cost has been high, but the price of freedom is always paid in blood." His hands moved across the controls, preparing the overload sequence. "Tell the children who will be born free because of what we did here. Tell them that humanity looked into the darkness and was not afraid." Tasi, the void seed died screaming across dimensions. The sound was not heard with ears, but felt in the minds of every thinking being in the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, enslaved populations suddenly collapsed as alien thoughts left their heads. For the first time in decades, Dr. Lee Soo-young stood in the ruins of the temple chamber, watching the massive crystal turn to dust. Around her, the twisted architecture began to crumble as the alien influence that had shaped it faded away. But something was wrong. "The quantum rifts are expanding," she said into her communicator, her voice filled with growing horror. The resonance wave tore holes in space-time itself. Through the temple's broken walls, she could see tears in reality itself, places where space folded in on itself, where the laws of physics no longer applied. If these rifts continued to grow, they would eventually tear the galaxy apart. Admiral Kim Yun-seo, now the highest-ranking officer in what remained of the Allied fleet, received reports from across known space. The Valthek Empire had collapsed. In a matter of hours, billions of enslaved beings were free, but the universe itself was coming apart at the seams. "How long do we have?" she asked Dr. Choi Min-jae, the fleet's chief physicist. "At the current rate of expansion, maybe 6 months before the rifts reach critical mass," he replied. "After that, the entire galaxy becomes uninhabitable." The cruel irony was not lost on anyone. They had saved the galaxy from slavery only to watch it die from the cure. But help came from an unexpected source. Scholar Prime Thymon had been War Prime, Corvex's chief scientist before the Void Seed's influence was broken. Now, free from alien control, he remembered who he had been before the infection. A peaceful researcher who had spent his life studying quantum mechanics. "The damage can be repaired," he told Admiral Kim Yun-seo through a translation device. "But it will require a coordinated effort across multiple star systems, and it will require sacrifice." The solution was as elegant as it was heartbreaking. The quantum rifts could be stabilized by creating anchor points, massive sources of controlled energy that would hold space-time together. The only energy sources powerful enough were the nuclear cores of large starships. But the ships would have to fly directly into the rifts, and their crews would not survive. Admiral Kim Yun-seo looked at the proposal with growing dread. They would need hundreds of ships, thousands of volunteers willing to die to save the galaxy. "I'll go," said Captain Wan Tae-yang without hesitation. He stood in the briefing room of his ship Prometheus, surrounded by his crew. They were all volunteers, humans, Corvani, Nexari, and others who had fought together for 3 years. "Sir, we all will," said his first officer, Lieutenant Kang Min-ju. "We've come this far together." Similar conversations were happening on ships throughout the Allied fleet. Beings who had fought side by side against the Valthek now volunteered to make the ultimate sacrifice to save the worlds they had liberated. The Genesis Protocol, as they called it, was humanity's final gift to the galaxy. Captain Wan Tae-yang opened, a channel to every human settlement in known space as his ship approached the largest quantum rift. Behind him, hundreds of other vessels followed in perfect formation, a funeral procession that would save billions of lives. "This is Captain Wan Tae-yang of the Earthship Prometheus. We came from a small blue world in an ordinary solar system. We were nothing special, just another species trying to survive among the stars." His ship entered the edge of the quantum rift, and reality began to bend around them. The hull groaned under stresses that no material should have to endure. But when we found evil in the darkness, we chose to light a candle rather than curse it. We die so that others might live. We sacrifice so that others might be free. One by one, the Genesis ships flew into the quantum rifts and detonated their nuclear cores. Each explosion created a stable anchor point, holding space-time together through sheer force of will and the power of atoms split in the service of life. You called us primitive, Valthek. You said our existence offended the natural order. But in the end, it was your empire that fell, and our ideals that endured. Captain Wan Taiyang's ship reached the rift's center. Around him, his crew worked calmly at their stations, making final adjustments to ensure their sacrifice would count. You have sealed your own doom by underestimating the power of those who fight for something greater than themselves. The Prometheus exploded in a burst of light that could be seen from neighboring galaxies. The quantum rift stabilized, held in place by the ship's sacrifice and the determination of its crew. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Ships crewed by beings from dozens of worlds flew into the tiers in reality and gave their lives to repair the damage. Each explosion was a funeral pyre, but also a beacon of hope. The last Genesis ship was commanded by Dr. Kim Youngji, the woman who had decoded the location of Dominion Prime. As her vessel approached its assigned rift, she sent one final message to the galaxy. To those who will inherit the universe we leave behind, remember that freedom is not free. Remember that some things are worth dying for. Remember that even the smallest light can drive back the greatest darkness. Her ship's explosion sealed the final quantum rift. The galaxy was saved. 100 years later, on the memorial world of New Earth, historian Song Miran stood before a class of young beings from 20 different species. They had grown up free, never knowing the terror of the void seed or the despair of slavery. "Can anyone tell me about the humans?" she asked. A young Corvani raised a clawed hand. "They were the species that started the rebellion, Teacher Song." "That's right, Korthak. And why was that important?" A Nexari child, her crystal body shimmering with excitement, answered, "Because they showed everyone that even small beings could fight big enemies." Historian Song Miran smiled. These children lived in a galaxy governed by the Terran Accords, a democratic alliance of free species that had grown from the resistance movement started by humanity. The humans had a saying, she told her students. They said that evil triumphs when good beings do nothing. So they chose to do something even when it seemed hopeless. She activated a holographic display showing the memorial at the center of New Earth, a simple stone monument with words carved in every language spoken in the galaxy. "What do the words say?" asked a young Ethan. Historian Song Miran read the inscription aloud. "Here lies the memory of humanity, a species that looked into the abyss and chose to light a star. They were never the strongest, the fastest, or the smartest, but they were the ones who stayed to fight when everyone else ran. They were the ones who chose hope when despair was easier. They were human, and they were enough." The children sat quietly for a moment, thinking about beings they had never met who had died before they were born. "Teacher Song," asked the young Corvani, "do you think the humans knew they would save everyone when they started fighting?" "No, Korthak. I think they just knew that some things were worth fighting for, whether they could win or not." After class, historian Song Miran walked through the memorial gardens where statues honored the heroes of the war. There was Admiral Baek Jisoo, who had held the resistance together in its darkest days. There was Colonel Osu Jin, who had trained fighters from dozens of species to work as one army. There was Dr. Jung Hyun, whose discoveries had made victory possible. At the center of the garden stood the largest statue, not of a famous general or brilliant scientist, but of an ordinary human family. A mother, a father, and 2 children, looking up at the stars with hope in their eyes. The plaque beneath read simply, "To all the humans who dreamed of freedom and died to make it real." As the sun set on New Earth, historian Song Miran thought, About the species that had saved the galaxy and then willingly disappeared into quantum fire. They had faced an enemy that seemed invincible, fought a war that seemed unwinnable, and made sacrifices that seemed unbearable, but they had done it anyway, because that was what humans did. When faced with impossible odds, they found a way. When confronted with ultimate evil, they chose to fight. When given the chance to save others at the cost of their own lives, they said yes without hesitation. The galaxy was free because a species from a small blue world had refused to surrender. Their principles, even in the face of extinction, they had been outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched in every way that mattered, except one. They had been human, and in the end, that had been enough. The stars shone down on New Earth, and in their light, the memory of humanity burned eternal. A reminder that even the smallest candle can hold back the darkness, and even the weakest voice can echo across eternity when it speaks for freedom. Their final transmission had indeed sealed someone's doom, not their own, but that of every tyrant who thought that might made right, that the strong could prey on, the weak without consequence, that the galaxy belonged to those who took it by force. Humanity had proven them wrong with their last breath, and that proof would endure as long as the stars themselves. The war was over. Freedom had won. And somewhere, in the quantum foam between dimensions, the spirit of humanity smiled and was content.